Hello everyone. On behalf of the GATS tutoring program, I would like to invite all the students to make use of a new initiative, which is the AP tutoring video series. So what we've done in this is our qualified students have basically broken the AP subjects unit by unit into simple 10-minute videos. We hope that these videos will come in handy for your test prep or for the AP exam prep. The subjects that we have worked on so far are AP World, AP Biology, AP Human, AP Psychology, and AP Calc AB. So if you would like to watch more videos like this, please be sure to subscribe to our GATS YouTube channel. And also, if you would like to be part of this initiative, please email us at gats-tutoring@gatamilsangam.org. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sudhiksha Sundrakanabady. Today we're going to be going over AP World History Unit 5, and we're going to be starting with the modern key takeaways. So we're going to be comparing the world during the 1750 to 1900 period. So the Enlightenment, nation-state, and industrializations were different parts of the way that the world changed at this time. So the Enlightenment was inspired by a wave of independence movements and revolutions, so it promoted liberty and democratic values. Next off, we have the nation state, which was an aspect of cultural identity. So in Europe, nationalist movements led to the unification of Italy and Germany. In Russia, China, Japan, and the Ottoman Empire, nationalism promoted rebellions and reform movements. So basically, the way that this worked is by everyone combined or working towards one goal of unifying their country or state, then this is how both nationalist movements started, the unification of Italy and Japan and Germany. And then we have the nationalism promoted rebellions because of the way that everyone wanted and strived towards the same goal of reforming their society. And last up, we have industrialization. So this increased economic connectedness between parts of the world. So industrialized nations in Europe and the Americas wanted to colonize parts of Africa and Asia to obtain raw materials and use them to produce goods in their own country. So basically, they wanted to use these countries for their materials to make their own country prosper. And so they wanted new markets for trade because as they made more and more products, they could expand their trade network. Next up, we have how populations changed throughout the world from 1750 to 1900. So the population grew mainly, and many migrated to cities in search of work in factories. So the factory system came to be during this time period. So wage laborers were more desirable than forced labor. So many people strive for a wage instead of slaves or serfs being used at that time. So slaves and serfs were emancipated. Then the working class emerged. So these are the people that work for a wage. So you can see this right here. And the workers organized into unions sometimes because you can see right here that they are working in terrible working conditions at this time. So they fought in unions to fight for improving conditions. Next up, we had new political and economic ideologies, which emerged in response to industrialization. So liberalism is when they promoted limited government interference, so the government should not interfere with how the free market is functioning. Then we have socialism and communism, which is the exact opposite. So this advocated for government regulation and interference in the way that the economy functioned, and increased political power for the working class. And the last up, we could see that women gained many opportunities as a result of industrialization in the factory system. So many, however, were still considerably paid less, but they still had the opportunities equal to men. So Enlightenment ideals promoted women to fight for political rights as well, and they soon came to realize in the 20th century, but they started fighting for equality between men and women. They got the aspect of the factory because both men and women were working in the factory system, but now they wanted different rights like the right to vote and different things like that. So revolutions and independence movements. So the Enlightenment was the stem of many different revolutions. So the Enlightenment was the post-Renaissance period, in when many people were devoted to studying and exploring new ideas, new traditions, new ways to think about many of the traditional ways of doing things. So the American Revolution. So this was a conflict between American colonists and the British government. They were very angry because of the taxation and governing policies that the British government put on America. So from 1775 to 1781, they fought for their rights, and eventually they did win this conflict, and they got their independence from Britain, and it ended in a democratic nation for America. So the reason that the revolution even existed is because of the new way of thinking that was established by the Enlightenment. The next up, we have the French Revolution, which is inspired by the American Revolution, which is inspired by the Enlightenment. So all of these revolutions are connected. And so this was a conflict between the third estate, which is the peasants, the townsfolk, and the merchants. So the third estate you can kind of think of as a lower class, and the first and second estates as the first and second class. So these are the clergy and the nobility, and they both fought for political and social power because both of these estates were not equal and they wanted to become equal. So this was inspired by the American Revolution, like I said before, and Napoleon Bonaparte ultimately seized power after this. So after we have the Haitian Revolution, so this was a slave revolt that lasted from 1791 to 1804. If you can kind of see the pattern that all of these revolutions are happening around the same time, because everyone is getting inspired by the Enlightenment and the different way of thinking. So this is led by Toussaint Louverture, and the former French colony of Saint Dominique became the independent nation of Haiti. So this was the second independent nation in Western Hemisphere, and is one of the first world Black republics. So that was a big deal at that time, since many of the people in Haiti were slaves and they revolted to form their own independent nation. So the Maroons were a term for an escaped slave in the Americas who established their own settlement away from all the plantations, but it did cause tensions with the colonial authorities. The last step, we had the Latin American independence movements. So this was a movement against Spanish colonial rule in Central and South America. So it led to the independence of every nation in that region. So that's why it's overall called the Latin American independence movements, and inspired by the success of the Haitian, the American Revolution, and the French Revolution. And the leaders were Simon Bolivar, Jose de San Martin, and Bernardo O'Higgins. So those are three people that I would look into more deeply, especially Simon Bolivar and the works that he's written, and Toussaint Louverture for the Haitian Revolution. Next up, we have nationalism. So the reason that we keep coming back to nationalism every time period is because this is a way that everyone unites and fights for one goal. This is one of the biggest reasons that revolutions successfully happen, and there are many rebellions, unions, everything. So nationalism is basically where people see themselves as part of a broader community. So they have common cultures, common ideas, languages, religion, and it's a sense of national identity, pride for your own country. So as you can see here, this is kind of one of the reasons that the French Revolution happened, because everyone felt that they were part of the French and that they wanted to fight for their own country. So it fueled the expansion of empires and also led to like democratic nations like the America to becoming an independent nation. So industrialization. We keep coming back to this topic because it's one of the main ways that our country has changed over the time period. So Adam Smith, he wrote The Wealth of Nations. He advocated a laissez-faire policy toward economics. So this basically means that there's minimal government interference in the economy. So they basically let the government run on its own accord and no one interfered in the way that was going on. And he's usually considered the father of modern capitalism, so you'll be hearing his name very often. So as you can see here, this is the book that I was talking about. Here's The Wealth of the Nations. This is where he wrote all of his ideas on the minimal government interference or capitalism policy that he advocated for. Next up, we have the factory system that I covered a little bit before. So this is a system of labor that uses rigorous mechanization and large numbers of unskilled workers to mass produce goods. And at a time before, these were made by people who were very skilled in building one. For example, if you're building a bike, then this one skilled person would build the entire bike. But now, since there are many parts to a bike, unskilled workers were trained to only build one part, and this would help mass produce goods faster and more efficiently. So this developed during the Industrial Revolution, which was a huge change, and the use of interchangeable parts, like I said about the bike, was one of the main ways that the factory system worked. And then lastly, you have the global division of power. So this was a system in which the industrial societies like obtained raw materials of less industrial societies like Asia, cotton from India, rubber from Brazil, and metals from Africa, to facilitate large scale manufacturing, transportation, and overall expand their trade network to facilitate more both exports and imports at the same time. So there was two parts to the Industrial Revolution at that time. So the first Industrial Revolution was development of industrial production. So this occurred in European countries and the United States. So you can kind of see that this was more the richer countries, the more industrialized nations. And it was a development of the steam engine. So you can see that right here. This allowed steamships and early locomotives to be built after the time period, but it allowed for cheap and efficient transportation. People could commute easily from their jobs and overall changed the way that people worked. So more richer, high-class people moved to the ruler cities, and then the more people who were of lower status moved to urban cities to be closer. So next we have second industrial revolution. So this was a continuing industrialization, but it involved new methods. So it included steel, chemicals, and electrical power. So this introduced new ways of working and living. And one of the main things that came from the second industrialization was the railroad. So this was a steam powered locomotive that was invented in England, and it started a transportation revolution. Like I said before, mass produced goods were transported over land quickly and inexpensively. And that is it for AP World History Unit 5, and I hope to see you again. Goodbye. Thank you so much for watching.